Hello friends, welcome to my channel and to day 11 of Spellbinder's 2024 Advent Calendar. I absolutely love the crafty surprise that's behind this door. It is a fabulous embossing folder. Out of all of the cards to date, this one was the most fun to make. This embossing folder is narrow, but it is tall enough for an A2 sized card. I wanted to create a full-size background, so we're going to start off with some repeat embossing. The top and the side of my white panel is lined up right along the edge of the embossed design, and I'll just run it through the die cutter. Now I'll line up the inside edge of the embossing with the design on the embossing folder. Because the embossing folder is so translucent, it is easy to see, and then I'll run it through my die cutter again. And again, the edge of the embossing on the panel is lined up to the edge of the embossed design on the folder. This ensures that the design will be continuous and there will be no gaps. And the 3 embossings weren't quite enough to fill up my panel, so I'm going to line up the edge and do the little bit on the end. Though this embossing folder is narrow, it is a 3D folder, so it is thick. For my die cutter, I do not require the top plate. I am just using the platform and the bottom plate. The panel is going to be inked with Distress Oxide inks. I'll start off by masking off the first 2 rows of squares using Post-it note tape. The inks that I've selected are going to be applied in rainbow order, and I'm starting off with Picked Raspberry. I'm not applying a ton of pressure. Rather, I'm keeping it light and applying the ink until I get the tone that I want. The Post-it note tape is moved to cover up the inked area, and then I'll add another strip of tape to the other side of the next 2 rows of squares. This time I'm applying Carved Pumpkin. This is a quick process. I'll go ahead and mask the area that I just inked, and then I'll take my other piece of tape and apply that right along the edge of the next 2 rows that I'm going to ink. So this time I'm going to be applying Squeezed Lemonade. So you may notice that my Post-it note tape is quite long and extends beyond the edges of either side of the panel. And there is a good reason for that. This tape does not stick to any area that is wet, like the wet ink, and you can see that it is popping up when I'm masking the yellow area. But the tape extending onto the work surface does a good job of holding it in place, and now I'm ready to apply my next ink color, which is Mowed Lawn. This is a pretty repetitive and easy process, but it is really fun lifting up the tape and revealing what it looks like when the next ink color has been applied. So now we're on to the 5th color, and this one is Tumbled Glass. And of course, for the end of the panel, I only need to mask off the blue area, and I'll apply my last color of ink, which is Villainous Potion. So right now, this is looking like a pretty average rainbow colored design, but we're going to change it up. Now I'm going to mask off the first 2 rows of squares vertically, and I'll just apply my ink colors in the same order that I applied them horizontally right over all of those colors. And I'm starting off with Picked Raspberry, and just look at the cool result. And I'll continue as I did before, masking off the area that was just inked and then the edge of the next 2 squares. And again, I continue to apply them in rainbow order. And the one that I'm applying now is Carved Pumpkin. And like the first inking that was done horizontally, when the inks are applied vertically, I'm not applying much pressure. I don't want to obliterate all of the colors that are already on there. Rather, I want the color that I'm applying to blend with the one underneath it to create a new tone. I just applied Squeeze Lemonade, and now I'll move on to my next ink color, which is Mowed Lawn. This is such a fun technique to do. And the design of this embossing folder is perfectly matched to it. And again, as I apply the ink, I'm keeping my pressure nice and light. And now I just need to mask off the last area that I inked, and I'm on to my last color. And I'll be finishing up with the tumbled glass because the vertical columns only have 5 double rows of squares. And there we go, the completed panel. And it kind of reminds me of light going through a stained glass window. Panel is being adhered to an A2 size black card base. I wanted to have a border around the design so that it would really pop. So I started off with my panel measuring 4 by 5¼ inches. I chose a fine sentiment from Woodland Tales Sentiment so that I wouldn't be covering up all of those beautiful tones of color. The scripty words were die cut from silver glitter cardstock and also black sheet foam. And I'm just going to stack those. And before I pop them out of the excess foam, I'll be setting them aside to dry for several minutes. And now they're ready to go, and I like to use a craft pick to help release them from the foam. My sentiment will be in 2 lines, so I'll start off with the lower one and the largest word and adhere that to the card front. And this is easy to do because I just need to follow the lines on the grid of the design. I have my top 2 words lined up, and so now I can just go ahead and adhere those. And then on goes the final word U. There we go, this fine sentiment done up in sparkly glitter paper so that it stands out from that colorful background. And it is further highlighted with a trio of silver confetti. Will be finished off with Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew. And I bet you saw that coming. And that's a wrap on this fun and unique rainbow card featuring Spellbinder's Day 11 of the 2024 Advent Calendar. I hope you enjoyed this video and will come back for day 12. As always, I appreciate your visit.